So now I want to understand how I'm doing in my courses. So right on my dashboard in our Genius site, I can see real quick, here are my courses, here's my grade, here's my percentage complete, and here's my pacing. However, if you go over to your academic snapshot, you're going to get a better picture of exactly what's going on in each of these courses. So let's stop and take a minute to really understand what the grade metrics represent in this academic snapshot here. So you can see there are 3 different grades represented in this snapshot. For the sake of brevity, as I'm speaking, I'm only going to look at the whole number grade. I'm not rounding. I'm not looking at the decimals. So take that into consideration as I'm speaking. All right, so the actual grade for art is 44%. For math is 93%, science is 94%, and fitness is 98%. So what does this represent and why is it different potentially for the other grade measures? Well, this is the actual student's progress on assignments. However, it puts in a penalty if the student has fallen behind in pacing. So if the student should be just about 22% through the course, however, they're only about 10% through the course, their grade is going to be affected for their actual grade. So there is a penalty for being behind in pacing, and that's relative to the percent that they're behind, the ratio in pacing. Okay, so that's as if the student should have had 22% of their assignments in, but have only turned in about 10% of their assignments. Therefore, they have zeros on that 12% of assignments, okay, which is affecting their overall grade. So down here in math, you can see this student's pacing is pretty much on point. They're less than 1% ahead. So their pacing is pretty on target. Therefore, their actual grade and their overall grade do match up because there is no penalty there for pacing because the student has not fallen behind. Now up here in science, this student is behind in science. However, they're only about 3.5% behind, so it's not as significant as the 12% behind they were in art. So their actual grade and their overall grade are apart by about 15%. However, it's not as drastic of a drop in grade as it is in art because their pacing is not as behind. And then again down here, when we look at fitness, their pacing is about 1% ahead. Therefore, their actual and their overall grade are equal because they are on pace for that course. Whereas students have till the end of the course to complete their work, we do want them to know what their grade would look like today if they were penalized for pacing, even though they are not actually penalized for pacing. We do want to make sure that their pacing levels back out. So by the end of the course, the student ends their courses January 28th, that they are on track with pacing so that their overall grade does match their actual grade. However, if they complete the course and they are still behind in pacing, that actual grade will end up becoming their final grade because they did not complete all of the work for that. So I've hinted at this, but basically their overall grade is the weighted average of their scores that they have right now, regardless of pacing. So in art, that overall grade only represents those 10 assignments that have been turned in. In math, it represents the 67 assignments that have been turned in. In science, the 35, and in fitness, the 20. Okay, so that's a good indication of how they're doing in their coursework, regardless of. Lastly is the relative grade. So you can see it is off on all 4 courses, right? It's significantly lower than their overall and their actual grades. That is because this metric is computed by putting in zeros for all the assignments that have not yet been completed in the course. So for art, that's 61 assignments that now have zeros in them, and that's why their relative grade is a 1.5%. For math, right now they have done 67 assignments out of 275. So they still have 208 assignments to complete before that January 28th cutoff. So if they had put in zeros for those 208 assignments, then their grade would be a 16%. All right, same for fitness. So right now they've done 20 out of those 85 assignments. So that relative grade of 23% is indicative of if they put in those zeros for those 65 assignments that have not yet been complete. And finally, up here in science, they've done 35 out of 165 assignments. Again, they're slightly behind in this course, but that relative grade of 8% is as if they put in zeros for those 130 assignments that have not yet been complete yet. It's important to remember that the relative grade includes putting zeros in for assignments that have not yet been assigned according to pacing yet. Students have until the end of the term, that January 26th date for this student, January 28th date for this student, in order to turn in their assignments. However, we do encourage everybody to stay up in pacing before it does put them so far behind that they have a lot to catch up in the end.